With that, we will go back to items number 6 and items number 7, specifically related to new issuance of new bond debt. We actually have our bond underwriter here, members from Piper Jaffray. Chris, if you'd like to get up and talk a little bit about,
Would you rather have maybe bond counsel discuss the resolution that's being?
oh, Pat can, he can do that if you'd like to do that,
Have a
sure.
Context in which I can give you.
Oh, sure, that's fine, yeah. Pat Healy.
Pat Healy, good evening. Pat Healy with Bruce Dyson Associates as your bond counsel. Item number 6 is a resolution for the appointment of professionals for the bond issue. It's separate from the bond resolution itself, which is item number 7. This is the same style of resolution that you adopted back when you did the refunding bonds earlier. It appoints, as it pretty clearly states, Piper Sandler as your underwriter, Bruce E. Dyson Associates, PC, as bond counsel, and authorizes us to assist the district in undertaking the project, which in this instance is actually item number 7, issuance of debt in order to do certain capital projects and renovations throughout the district, most pointedly the middle school. So that's the number 6. You want me to jump to 7? Sure. So 7 is your formal, longer bond resolution, similar to the bond resolutions you've adopted in the past. And what it does is it authorizes the issuance of up to, in this instance, $40 million worth of bonds. As you know, in the past, that number will be, as Chris will let you know, less than 40 million. It just provides flexibility when structuring the bond issue under state law submissions that we have to make. So we overestimate it's a not to exceed resolution. The project described in the definition section is the project I just mentioned, capital projects within the school district, including expansion and renovation of the Mosside Middle School. Gateway Middle School. And it basically allows designated officers to enter into a bond purchase agreement when the bonds, as Chris will mention, are actually priced at some point when they're done with the rating agencies and the other hoops that you have to go through. The designated officers will be empowered to say, yes, lock it in, and sign the bond purchase agreement. We won't need another board meeting or any more formal approvals like this. So it provides flexibility, as we've discussed in the past. It pledges your full faith, credit, and taxing power to back up the bonds. It authorizes the same designated officers to work with me in completing documentation for submission to DCD, which I do, and then all the closing documents, which will be circulated to the working group, as we've done in the past. And then I will come back out sometime before the closing date, which will be set by Piper Sandler, to get president's signature and the secretary's signature and probably the vice president's signature. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I can turn it
We
over.
may want Chris to talk.
Chris is, yeah, turn it over to the real interesting guy.
All those people in TV land are tuning in to hear about the bond market.
All right. Paul, I'll ask, were you able to distribute what I sent you yesterday?
Yes, I did.
So
email that out.
everyone has received, otherwise I'd hand it out again, but if everyone has it, we'll be good to go. Thanks. I'm Chris Shelby with Piper Sandler. Last bond issue we did for you, we were Piper Jaffray, but we have merged with another company, actually not merged, but acquired another company, and so now we're Piper Sandler. Mr. Jaffray is sent on his way. But not really. Anyways,
Yes.
I was going to say, is he retired? And
Mr. Jaffray's had enough of this business. But anyways, first off, I guess you've all seen the market.
We're gonna need a replacement.
Yes, we will be forwarding you replacements so you can throw out those old silly
yeah,
folders.
that's right, which we all carry with pride.
We have about 200 of those in the office that we are looking at, in all honesty, to give away. And if there's a school district that would like them, you're welcome to them. They're kind of nice, but anyways. To bring you up to speed on the market, just very briefly, I know you've seen the news. You've probably heard there's a virus going around. And it is having a fairly serious impact on the market, and as a result, we have a 10-year bond, which was floating around 2%, 2.25%, now down at 0.8%. So
Say that
not
one more
even
time.
one, pardon me?
Just say that one more time so everybody
The
heard that.
10-year bond is now at approximately 0.8%. That would be your return if you invested your money in the U.S. Treasury today for 10 years. And if you go for 30 years, what is it, Chip? 1.02? 1.29. So the 30-year bond, if you want to spend your money there, will get you 30-year return of 1.2%, which is very exciting for the investor, but it's much more exciting for the school district because rates are now absolutely at the lowest point they've ever been in the history of our country, and or at least since they've recorded rates. And with that, that's where you're exploring the market right now in terms of your financing for the new money. Just as a reminder, we just closed on your refunding issue that was mentioned earlier, and that closed just on March 3rd, and the results for the school district were over. Just to bring you, maybe, I know you have a lot of things on your mind, but I know we set a minimum for that savings of $750,000 minimum, otherwise no deal. And the school district, I think, the result was $1,060,000, maybe in total $1,164,000 over the remaining life of the bonds, resulting in about a $70,000 to $80,000 per year reduction in the debt service that existed on those bonds. So you have that going into this, and that's good.
excellent.
Now, embarking on this, we're looking at, as was stated, a $35 million project fund. And as Pat mentioned, the parameters resolution set $40 million as a maximum. And the reason you do that, again, is because of state law. You have to have some amount that protects you well over the stated amount. If you did get a chance to see what I sent Mr. Schott, right now, in order to raise $35 million for the project, it appears as though we'll have to issue literally approximately $29 million in bonds, because the market is such that we are, the bonds being issued, and they're tax-exempt bonds. The last were taxable because it was an advanced refunding, which you couldn't do with tax-exempt bonds, but this is with tax-exempt bonds, and now we're looking at them drawing a premium. In other words, their coupon rate or the stated interest rate on the bonds will be higher than their yield. That means that we'll sell them for more than $1,000 a piece. And the premium that they're sold for accrues to the district. And by selling them at that premium, it reduces actually the bond issue size by $5 or $6 million in the par amount that you'd be issuing. Just to go over briefly, to provide $35 million in the market today, it won't be the same when you go there. It may be better, just as with the refunding issue, came out far better than the $750,000 that you said. It looks like we are looking at an annual increase of about $1,175,000 per year. And that would, and the entire payment would be completed in 2041. And the all-in arbitrage yield of this bond issue for really 21-year financing is about 1.81%. That is your borrowing cost. It is ridiculously low. It's the lowest we've ever seen, especially for a 21-year bond issue. Your rating is strong, you're stable. You were just rated for the refinancing. We expect, the rating process to be brief, or somewhat brief, because actually Paul's been through it twice, because we went through it late last year in hopes of doing the refunding. The market ran away from us, it ran away from you, and then the market came back strong and we were able to get the financing done. Paul was faced with another rating agency meeting. This will generate another one as well, but I don't think it'll be too difficult for them. They're pretty familiar with the district right now. So what we would be doing from tonight, just as with the refunding issues, we begin the preparation of documents, which should be, again, somewhat expedited because you're still within the same fiscal year. We don't have any really new attachments or demographic changes to the school district that are going to raise any alerts to the rating agency, and therefore you should just be in excellent shape there. And then, at that point in time, after we complete the new document, the new preliminary official statement document, we will then be coming back and taking another look at the market. That'll probably be in about 3 weeks or 4 weeks from tonight. We'll take another look at the market, making sure nothing has gone crazy that would surprise you versus the numbers that we were able to distribute. And upon everything being somewhat the same, we'll move on to the rating process, because the rating is an expense of the school district. We are not in this process until the bond issue is actually sold, but the rating is an expense to the school district when it is undertaken. But of course, we'll get a last look at the market and make sure that everything is as you're seeing it tonight, or within reason to what you're seeing tonight. And at that point in time, we'll go for the rating 3 weeks from tonight, maybe 4 weeks from tonight. Go for the rating. It's about a 10-day process again, and then we'd be prepared to market your bonds. And as Pat Healy said, you have designated officials of the school district so that you don't have to reconvene. You're designating school officials tonight to approve the bond issuance, obviously subject to what all the board members are hearing here tonight. And if we don't meet those standards, or just as on the refunding issue, if we hadn't exceeded the minimum, it could not have been done, nor would have been authorized by the appointed officials. So I'm here for any questions. We have a little bit of preparation work to do. Again, you're going to have another look at all of this, at least through Paul, and distributed through Paul, even if it isn't through a meeting, just so that you're all reassured everything is what you're seeing or heard tonight.
Okay, I'd like to open it up for questions or comments by board members. Anyone? Go ahead, Mrs. Delaney.
I just wonder, what are some of the worst possible scenarios? I guess I'm looking at the market being so volatile right now.
It's been so volatile, but it's been so volatile in the direction of the school district. I mean, if it were to drop off, you'd still be historically low. If you lost 0.5% today on interest rates, if they went up 0.5% by the time you got to do this bond issue, you'd still have historically low interest rates. So you're I mean, anything could happen. Unfortunately, it looks as if the coronavirus is having sort of a permanent effect on the market, and foreseeably, I know every college, my daughter's college is about to be closed, and she's going to be sent home. I heard Kent State's shut down, Harvard shut down, Michigan shut down, Indiana shut down, Ohio State shut down, and they're all just it appears as though it is a little bit more the crisis mode, and maybe it's all social media driven, but unfortunately, the impact is on the economy. And what has happened is everyone's getting out of the stock market and buying U.S. Treasuries to protect their cash, because they're so fearful of the market continuing to drop, even though it was back up a little bit today, but lost 2,000 yesterday, gained 1,000 back today. But I would say, in other words, you're protected because we aren't moving you into that market tonight. I wish we could, actually, because we know where we are today, but we're going to know where we are before you make that next move. And we're going to make sure, I'm sure, in your board and those authorized will make sure that you're well.
So maybe can I recap in layman's terms, is that, Gateway has been pursuing the idea of renovating Gateway Middle School. We have architects, we have plans going. We weren't really prepared to go to market with bonds yet, but because the market is so low and we can borrow the money now and lock the rate in at a 1.8%, basically is what we would be paying back. We're looking at this now. It doesn't mean that we're starting construction next month because we haven't finalized things. What we're doing is trying to be responsible and act on preserving that capital that we need for our project while the financing options are very affordable for the Gateway School District.
Yeah.
Is that a fair
I
assessment?
mean, yeah, and hopefully you'll be able to look back. I mean, I don't know how much lower or how much better the market could get. It could get worse. I can't help but think over the next 5 years, you're gonna look back and say, we really hit it at the right time. Can't guarantee anything, but it certainly appears when we're only getting 0.8% for a 10-year bond and 1.2% for a 30-year bond. There isn't that much room to go that much lower, you know, so I think you're
Mr. Shaw?
relatively safe.
I do have a couple things just to share in general. I mean, obviously, this has been very volatile economic circumstances. But I did look back, the first time that Piper Sandler had prepared a $35 million new money calculation was back on January 27th. To examining that calculation to today's current calculation, March 10th, and looking at the entire debt service. Again, the markets move so much that when you look in the total columns on page 5 in the document, and you compare the total in terms of over 21 years, we would be paying now, what was calculated back on January 27th, the district would pay a total of $50,695,300. Now, paying out the full 21 years, and again, this is assuming there's no other refinancing opportunities available, $48,783,707. A savings over 21 years, we would not be paying $1,912,000 in interest.
So it's almost a $2 million savings
Yes.
in 2 months is what you're saying?
Yes. Now, as Mr. Shelby said, whether we see that in another month, we're ready to move forward into the bond market, we don't know. It may get better. It's possible. We don't know. But these are historic times with that. Now, I do have to mention, this is a good situation, but we are faced with a slightly negative situation I want to bring to everyone's attention, and in terms of the the Federal Reserve Bank. When we set this year's budget, starting, probably September, probably around September, the Fed's already moved 3 times last year. We know last Monday, they moved another 50 basis points. They're scheduled to meet next Wednesday, the 18th, probably another 25, maybe 50 basis points. We don't know yet for that. So, we're looking at a situation with new bonds. We're locking down cheap money for 20 years to do our big projects and smaller projects, but we're also taking a hit on the short term in terms of interest earnings. And
You're trying to tell us that our interest rate income is down.
Yeah, and specifically interest earnings that, to the point where when I'm looking at projections for next year, I've had to lower our interest income, which is the interest we earn on excess cash deposits until we were required to use them, a $500,000 decrease. $500,000 decrease. What does that mean? That means in next year's budget, there's $500,000 less to pay for expenditures. So, that is a significant item. You'll hear me highlighting that again when we meet our first meeting on April 7th, our first Budget Finance Committee meeting up at the high school LGI at 6 p.m. But again, so, there's some good, there's some bad. It's more of a short-term thing. But again, in terms of this new money, we're looking at a longer-term great situation that we have the opportunity to take advantage of through the issuance of these new bonds. And most importantly, to address much, much needed capital projects that we've been talking about for 6-8 years in the district for that. So again, just wanted to highlight that, as we keep hearing, the rates are moving and, the proliferation of the coronavirus, there's a lot of different things going on. There's good, there's bad to that. So again, just wanted to highlight that and bring it to the board's attention and all of our stakeholders' attention as well.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I understand, the idea of this being a historic opportunity to save a lot of money, and that makes a lot of sense. My question is, I don't think anybody here as a board member has gone through anything quite like this. We're not, in the bond market or a construction field, for the most part. So my question would be, you guys deal with this sort of thing a lot, with issuing bonds and renovations. Is it typical that a district would issue the bond before actually having a price finalized or approval for the actual renovation? Like, I'm wondering if this is the standard or if this is kind of the cart and horse situation.
I'll tell you, probably in my experience, it's 50/50. If you're in a position where you can get bids and you have all your drawings done, that's a great benefit. But in fact, we've probably done every bit as many issuances in advance on estimates. And I guess the motivation, I know you have some expenditures that would be forthcoming over the next 6 months or so, but as well, just the realization of where rates are, I think may be motivation enough for this, let alone that you are not extraordinary by looking to finance a project in advance. You just aren't.
Let me just say that we represent more than one school district. I'm familiar with other school districts and other solicitors. Everybody's doing this, whether it's a refinancing or new projects. They're doing it because of the rates. Again, I can't say it, they can't say it enough times. This is below depression numbers. I mean, this is historically the lowest it's ever been. If you're even contemplating doing something like what you're suggesting, everybody's out there doing it at the various school districts. So, it makes sense just from that alone.
And just like our bond refinance, we'll vote on this next week, and then if it's approved, you will come back in 3 to 4 weeks, and we'll examine it again
Right.
before we pull the trigger on the bond rating.
And so, our next meeting is April 14th. So hopefully you've come back to us before then. This is March 10th.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we'll have the process nearly completed or at least into the rating phase. But even prior to the rating phase, you're going to get a look. We'll certainly communicate through Mr. Schott so he can communicate with the board or however you'd like that communication, that you can see numbers to see if they correlate to what you're looking at tonight.
Now, I know you guys are busy right now. Put us at the top of the list.
Well, all right.
I'm convinced.
Of course,
Good answer.
you are right on top.
And if I could add, Mr. McIntyre, that was the next question. We have been meeting weekly, myself, Mr. Brown, central office, and Mr. Telly, with Axis Architecture Group in establishing drawings. And the numbers that we have compiled at this point, and we are constantly retooling, revising, but it does look as if we will come in at that 35 million or below number. We have planned a building and grounds meeting, and I sent the 19th of March that we will be able to preview drawings that we have compiled to date with some other information pertaining to Gateway Middle School renovation. So on March 19th, we will have a building and grounds meeting.
You just said March
Just
19th.
Yes.
one last just thought or comment. Mr. Schott, it's my assumption that with this increase in debt service, this would require at least one, like at a minimum, 3% tax increase. Am I correct?
It will definitely take the full index for this year.
So, just so that the board's aware that, it's a great opportunity for us to do this. We're talking about $40 million. We're talking about the next 21 years of the district's finances. And we're talking about an increase, the taxes at the maximum, allowable percentage for the foreseeable future. So
No,
it-
be careful how you say that. 1 year of tax increase.
Correct.
Not
Well, it's 1 year,
every
but
year for
it's-
the next 30 years.
no.
I just want to make sure
That tax
wasn't
increase
perceived wrong.
is in effect for those 21 years as well.
The millage rate would
Right.
go up, correct?
Compounded, but it won't automatically trigger something every year specifically related
Correct.
to the debt.
Right, that's why I say the minimum of 1.
Yes.
Correct.
And one of the things we're doing, like the other resolution that was on here, that, we are, constantly, matter of fact, we're meeting tomorrow and reviewing the budget as well. This is such a large item, such an important item that we are trying to get into the budget. And we're looking at everything, and particularly one of the things that you'll hear through the rest of the process when we start meeting, LGI, what items can we, in terms of expenditures, either pump the brakes on to stop for next year, maybe take a pause with, or what items can we move into the current year that we can spend now, just
Right.
like we saw those other expenditures. We have some other ones we're also going to be taking a look at, bringing forward with that. But again, it's how can we make this happen to create advantage of this opportunity? This is a significant, might be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in terms of this type of financing to try to pull this off and to get the required capital that we need to undertake those required renovations that we've been discussing.
And then I would point out, when we go into the Building and Grounds Committee meetings too, and the public meetings on Building and Grounds, that we'll also be looking at when the project is done and we close the Moss Side Middle School, what those savings out of our annual budget will be too with the building closure, and how much of our new debt that would offset. So there'll be a lot of public input, and I hope, people will come to those meetings and participate and give their input on what they want their schools to look like and how much, they're willing to pay for the updates.
Yeah, I agree. Public input just sparked it for me right now that, when we discuss an athletic director, a football coach, a basketball coach, my phone vibrates off the table every night with emails, texts, phone calls. We have a line out the door. We're talking about a $40 million bond issue here, and if we don't, I'm going to be very disappointed in our community if we don't at least get some kind of public feedback here and get some people asking questions and holding us accountable for this. That's your job as the taxpayer, so.
So do we have any more questions for Chris? Because if not, we could let him go and we could move on to our other items for discussion. Board members?
Thank you.
No?
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Chris.